Good afternoon. You're live with Graham Coath. This is My Music, and today I'm with. Well, he's got up on his little banner there, Lord of the Strings, which is just to throw me off and see if I can remember his name. But it is Aziz Ibrahim. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah. Have you never? I mean, here's a music test. Really, it's a lot of encyclopedia of music. So, do you remember the album by Queen called Jazz?
Yep. Yeah.
So
with
jazz
weird structure,
the
on the front.
psychedelic. Yeah. So on that album is a song called Mustafa Ibrahim, and that's how you pronounce my name. So Freddie sang Mustafa, Mustafa, Mustafa Ibrahim. Brilliant solo by Brian May. So my name is Ibrahim. Ibrahim.
You have to sing it, don't you?
And it's the best way to describe my name is referring to an album by Queen from 1970, I don't know, 5 or something. God knows.
76, I think that album.
Oh, okay, 76.
I think.
Circa.
Yeah, circa that kind of time. What a fantastic way to remember your name.
Yeah, I thought so for a musician, you know.
Yeah, Coath doesn't appear in any song anywhere ever. Yeah. So maybe it needs to. I don't know. Coath is a Cornish name. So where and your name comes from? Your mother and dad?
Well, you know. It's Arabic. So my name is a Muslim name. Yep. As Christian names are, Peter, Paul, so forth. And this is a Muslim name, but all Muslim names are Arabic names, really, come from Arabic text with maybe some local dialects, like a lot of people have, say, for instance, from Berber villages or something, but they converted to Islam, then they'd have a combination of, and like Greek names or Turkish. Sometimes they're not always, just one. They kind of represent two things, like their heritage and their religion at the same time sometimes. But as far as I know, anyway, my name, it's an Arabic name.
Right. And do you know what the meaning of it is? So.
You know that cliche of where I'd have to kill you if I told you?
Yeah. Well, we won't go there then.
All I can tell you is when I travel abroad, and I've done a lot of shows, I'm probably the most traveled musician in the history of the world in the Axis of Evil tour that I've done. So-called. I mean, I'm not saying it is, but that's what they call it. When I was in Libya and Syria and you name it, I tell them, and they say, "What is your name?" And I go, Aziz, my middle name's Rahman, so I got Aziz Rahman Ibrahim. And they go, "Oh, you know what this means?" And no matter who I told, every time I met them, they'd go, "You know what this means?" Wow, this is of the beloved of the Almighty and all this. And then they're like, "You know what this means?"
And you're like, "Yeah, I know now. I know now. Thanks for I've been told 100 times."
So yeah, I mean, I kind of God bless my dad, my mom.
Well, Coath is something to do with it's a Cornish name, and it's something to do with
pirates.
Yeah. It is. How did you know? I should have been on Radio Luxembourg.
General knowledge and quizzes and in the pub, even though I don't drink.
Well, talking about general knowledge and quizzes, we would have both got that answer wrong because apparently someone that's listening says it's 1978. That album.
I see it right there. Hey, I like StreamYard. I saw it right there. Kept popped up on the screen.
Thanks.
Technology.
Thanks, whoever that was. Thank you very much. 1978.
Yeah, it didn't display a name. Yeah.
No. Well, you see, keeping secret in case it's showing off a bit too much.
I'm all about anonymity.
Absolutely.
In this day and age, especially on albums. Yeah. Should you use your name or should you not? Depending on. I mean, I can admit to some things now because I'm sure the listening audience and yourself, this is a musical audience, people who know. And sometimes if I did do sessions, which I don't like to admit, I would use a pseudonym or something, an alias as such. And I used to use L. Lucan.
Lord Lucan.
L. Lucan. I inherited that when I joined the Stone Roses in 1996, and we didn't want to tell the press, or they didn't want to tell the press who the new guitarist was that replaced John Squire. So, and when we checked in hotels, I was my brown envelope with my money and my drugs. My money and my I'm on the joke. The money and the the itinerary and so forth would be an envelope with L. Lucan on it. So ever since then and everywhere we traveled, I just kind of used.
Did anyone ever question it, or did they just take it?
Yeah, their eyebrows and all that raised and so forth. Yeah, absolutely. It just kind of stuck with me, and every time on albums, sometimes I go, "Oh God, they want me to play a bit of guitar on this Celine Dion track," and for L. Lucan, guitar by L. Lucan.
If it's someone you really don't want to be associated with, it's definitely L. Lucan.
No disrespect to Celine. I'm just saying.
No, I'm not saying not Celine, but I mean, if there was someone that you really didn't want to be associated, well, you wouldn't probably do the gig in the first place, would you?
Well, exactly.
If you really didn't want to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's good, and it's good that you managed to bring up the Stone Roses there without us having to talk about it. That was good.
That's the best bit,
isn't it? Just throw it in. Almost like a subtle throwaway there. And we won't even talk about Simply Red. There we go.
Well, my life's such a roller coaster, such a roller coaster from, I think the real story, I think a lot of times in interviews, I think it's missed is the point that how do you go from so many different genres, kind of easily move from genre to genre, because once you're associated with, then it kind of sticks with you, and then people associate you with that genre. But for me to have jumped from Simply Red in 1987 to the Stone Roses in 1996, it's like, and in between I've been in Asia. Well, I was the only Asian in Asia, but it's kind of very strange. And in actual fact, my background was in reggae and hip hop and soul and R&B.
It's all music, isn't it? I mean,
it's all music to me, definitely. Yeah, it's such a pleasure and a privilege, to have been where I've been and done what I've done and worked with so many illustrious people, and had it is a privilege. I mean, to me, definitely, because I come from this. I can't help but mention, my Pakistani, Muslim, British background. And it's kind of against the grain, to be in the rock and roll industry as such, per se. But I chose it. Well, no, I didn't choose it. It chose me. When I got a phone call from Simply Red in 1987, it chose me because it offered me a path and opportunity, whereas I probably have been the usual, doctor or whatever, and gone down that usual route and got arranged marriage and so forth, and I ended up a guy who throws TVs out of hotel room windows sober. And things like that. And
were you, before that point, were you playing in a band before Simply Red?
Lots of bands. Just before. Right. My biggest love is basketball. That's my biggest love. So at that time, I was playing in a basketball team in Moss Side in Manchester.
How tall are you?
I'm small. I'm 6 foot, so I was one of the smallest members. Yeah.
Well, you're fast. You're fast.
It's a cerebral game as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
Quick thinking.
You have skills in that area. Yeah.
I got skills, man. Yeah. Stay tuned. I'm sorry, I watch a lot of NBA, a lot of ESPN, TNT. Try and stay up with all the
just sinks in, doesn't it?
No, I kind of went from that into and studying as well at the time, and thinking that it was my career in sciences. My family's very techie, so we got into computers quite very early on, through the Sinclair kind of phase of computing and home.
Good man.
Yeah.
Which one did you have?
Programmer.
Can I tell you one? Spectrum?
So my brother was a programmer for the ZX Spectrum. Yeah, he started with the ZX80, and then the 81, wow, which is the Zilog chip. Now, the Zilog chip, I know we're kind of digressing here, but the Zilog chip is actually famous because of its use in the Russian space programs. Because of the embargo the US put upon the Russians, they became masters of the Z80 chip, which is in the Sinclair Spectrum. So their programming was so efficient, because the kind of US strategy is almost like excess, excess memory, power, everything in excess, along with Pepsi and Coke and
and supersize everything.
Yeah, take it everywhere. But the Russians, obviously, with this embargo, they created a very efficient programming, and we got into that. Really, we got into the chip, and we got into computer game music programming, in fact. And my brother was creating music for a company called Ocean, and I started creating music for that company when it became Psygnosis. So I wrote a soundtrack for a game called Eliminator on Psygnosis. It followed Wipeout, which was a very famous kind of groundbreaking game, and you can probably find it here and there. It was on PlayStation and so on. So I like soundtrack. I'd love to do a film score. Yeah. I've not actually done a film score yet.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Oh, I was saying to Steve Hackett, because have you heard any of the new album that he's
I've not yet. No.
Right. It's the closest thing that he's done to a classical album in a way. In parts.
Great title. Yeah.
And I asked him, had he got a full classical album, and he probably has at some point.
His playing, there's so many classical kind of influences within what he plays, and obviously he's done things where it was purely acoustic and worked with other Steves. GTR, was it GTR? Was it the project? What was it called?
Yeah, GTR with Steve Howe.
Yeah, and they really went into the classical aspects of things, and his playing and his compositions, you can hear I wrote a South Asian symphony once, as you do, and for a Manchester orchestra called the Manchester Camerata. And it's a funny thing, because I have no experience in classical music. I have no experience in South Asian, Indian classical music. And they approached me about a project which addressed partition in the year of the 70th anniversary. And being a typical Manc and that, you know what I mean? And like, it said to me, hey, mate, they said, Aziz, could you compose a South Asian symphony? I was kind of came all over all Manc and went, yeah, mate, of course I can. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, what do you want me to do? Yeah, top one. Yeah, top balls. Went home and then looked up the word, looked up these words. What's a symphony? And things like that. It's a good thing, where you accept a job, because you're hungry and you kind of go, oh, yeah, I can do that. And then you go home and look it up afterwards, but you've got the job.
You have to suddenly learn all of that jingo that you get with that forte.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wrote
fortissimo.
It was literally like that. So they were working and using software, to compose with, to score with. So I had to learn how that worked. But once I'd kind of got the grasp of it with help, I kind of took over. It was a takeover. And all of a sudden I was going, no, not on the oboes, on the clarinets. And let's have it on the, I learned about the principles of pitch and octaves and which instruments suit which octaves and how many you need to create the harmonies. And I learned very quickly, but I'm a born improviser in life. It's that kind of council estate street mentality, of like, watch your back and you get stopped by the old bill and what do you say? I was going, no, it wasn't me. I never.
Is that what got you in, apart from obviously the talent and the being able to actually play guitar well, but there was that partly why you got the Stone Roses gig when it came about, that you fitted in?
I had a friend on the inside. So they replaced the drummer at the time with a friend of mine, Robbie Maddox. Robbie and I were in a band called Rebel MC, who had Street Tough in the charts. So, and I'd done an album with them, Black Meaning Good. So Robbie had called me just merely to help with demos for, let's call it, the third coming. And I just went over to help with play the guitar parts, or play guitar while they started to compose. And then after that, I got a call because I think they went through a little bit of auditioning, and they went around. They tried Slash, or the Slash was on the cards, but they didn't want leather pants in the band, so it wasn't him. And then they tried Kelly, I think, from Girls' School, but that was a kind of a let's get at John Squire kind of thing. Let's get a girl and she'll be great, and all that. It was kind of the kind of soul sense, and that didn't happen. And then it came back to me because I was already involved with the demoing. I got on really well with Ian and Manny, and then the lyrics of the song, all I can say is, if you know Second Coming, lyrics from Atlanta, Georgia to Longsight, Manchester. That's me, Mr. Longsight M13. As you probably, if you know any Ian Brown albums, songs, Longsight M13 is one of those songs which I co-wrote, and so it's always been a part of my community, and home is a big part of my life and my albums and music.
Yeah.
On a light note, the news.
Do you enjoy the challenge of working with different types of singers in particular?
Yeah, absolutely. Chemistry, is everything in music. No person is an island. The interaction, and it's like when I was working with Steve Hogarth from Marillion, it was just fantastic to work with somebody who had so many talents, but excelled obviously in the vocal department and lyric writing, and had
he's got such a powerful voice, hasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely, and more than that, and an instrument. And he plays, many instruments, but keyboards predominantly. But that whole aspect of working with a talented vocalist like that, when we were doing the H band, and we had such an eclectic lineup, from Clem Burke from Blondie on drums, and Dave Gregory and XTC on guitar, and myself on guitar, Richard Barbieri from Japan, and obviously Porcupine Tree, and then Chicho Mershon, who played for Pink Floyd, and Eurythmics with Clem as rhythm section bass player, and Stephanie Sober Jones on cello. It was just,
it's a dream band, really, isn't it?
Dream band, yeah, it was. And but coming back to vocalists, I mean, I worked with such a diverse range of vocalists. Obviously Mick Hucknall. I didn't actually write any songs with Mick. We started to compose in sound checks, but he kind of kept everything to himself and would just record, sound checks and jams and things. But I worked with, Ian Brown, a completely different kind of vocalist, and that was a real experience of understanding about what the essence of honesty in music is, that relationship between fans and you. I mean, obviously, when I was doing the Asia gig, it was a bit in that kind of pomp and show, and have you got the right jewelry? Have you got any turquoise? And got the wrong.
Showing enough chest hair,
had the wrong hair, had the wrong chest hair, and had the wrong boots. I didn't have them pointy shoes, so. I didn't have that hair, but working
you got to learn to pose well, didn't you? Yeah,
I learned the posturing, the breathing. But what I've found is that that element of, in prog, it borders on pretentious sometimes, but not always. But there is a lot of that, and the arty side of it really vanishes up the. Well, anyway, let's not name names.
Up the back alley somewhere.
Let's not name names. Well, somewhere in the gluteus region, Maximus, Medius, and Minimus region. And then I was working with like reggae singers like Freddie Gregory, and then the late Dennis Brown, which is such a privilege, and Barrington Levy, and their culture. Brought so much to the table for me to learn from, to feed from. And then the same thing would happen working with Akala, MC Akala, and his lyrics are fantastic, and where the perspective he comes from. That's just in the rap domain and reggae domain, and then into like the prog domain. And then working with Stephen Wilson, it's kind of, these are in the early days of when I did work with different people from different bands. But then
did you learn any production stuff from Stephen? Because Stephen's obviously well known for his production.
Yeah, very much. I mean, he is about that, and it gave me kind of confidence, really, because I was using software and technology, and even using digital amps, and thinking about, well, actually, at the end of the day, it's about the end result and about the listener and the feeling it puts across, and does it put them in the right place? You do achieve your targets, and I kind of picked that up from him, that it was okay to use those things, because nobody can tell, especially I say like a non-musician. It's only their experience that gives you the feedback. They buy the album, they buy the single, they buy into the feedback is positive, and jobs are good. And as they say in Manchester, you got why are you laughing, mate? So anyway,
because I just love hearing that.
Right, okay, I got a few more of those on my sleeve if you want. I've been finding my P's and Q's at the moment, but I can turn all Soccer AM on you in a minute.
Well, the thing is, I live now. Obviously, if you listen to my accent, it doesn't come from where I live. Okay, so I live down in Somerset, so I'm down in the southwest. All my kids have got a Somerset twang, and my wife is from Somerset. But obviously, I'm from just north of London. But I lived up north for a while, so I miss kind of hearing all of these sayings.
Right.
And the guitarist in one of my bands for ages was from Manchester. And funny little story for you here. He used to say, one of his little things that he used to say when we went in pubs and things was, "Can I bum a fag off you?" Right? And then we told him one day when we went down south, we said, you can't say that around here, because he said it as in, he just used to go up to people and go, "Can I bum a fag?"
We call them stogies around here.
Yeah.
But over in just across the road over in Liverpool, it's like, 20 pence for a ciggy. Oh, put me down, mate. 20 pence for a ciggy. Oh, hey. It's like they say ciggy, maybe more. We say stogies. Not that I smoke, but passive smoking is my.
Well, I think anyone that's been a musician and played pubs has now it's okay. Now it's okay.
Or travelled in a bus, tour bus, with those that do 24/7.
Yeah. Do you mind, folks? I don't smoke. You're going to anyway. Yeah. Actually, I ended up at ear, nose, and throat specialist because of that. Because I used to sing in a band,
right.
And but I ended up with really bad throat, and it was I ended up going to see a specialist about it, and they said I'm allergic to smoke, which was an absolute bummer. But just too many nights spent in pubs back in the day when people could smoke in pubs.
Absolutely.
And you go in to do a gig, and the place would you didn't need smoke machines back then. The place was just full of smoke.
And the clothes just stank of smoke as well. All the old stories, and you come home and it's like, my dad was like, "You're smoking," and I'd be like, "No, it's just the aftermath of hanging out with people who do."
Well, exactly, and you'd smell of stale beer and stuff as well. I used to find, if you do gigs.
Speak for yourself, mate. But
anyway. Well. No, not from drinking it or anything like that. It was just purely because I used to take along gear and gaffer tape stuff down, and the gaffer tape would get covered in beer from everyone over the years.
With me, it was probably I had carpet stuck to my shoes. That stank. So, but I mean, coming out to the accent thing, working with somebody like Paul Weller, for instance, I spent a certain amount of time working with Paul, and now we co-write songs, which is fantastic. I guest on his albums sometimes, and he guests on mine, and so developed a really nice friendship. And he really, such a talented guy, but so enthusiastic about music, which I didn't know that about him, and he was so keen on it. And me coming from my kind of proggy background, and obviously he's the mod father, but he has such a love for music that he was so open to, you'd question me about my kind of South Asian, Indian classical influences and Punjabi influences of music, because the way that I play has my identity in it, I'd probably say. And he'd always ask me about, the scales I use or the way that I play, the notes, and but the curiosity in him, it was just so, it was almost childlike, that enthusiasm, it was fantastic to see. But he really inspires me, lyric writing, the way that he would write. Ian Brown used to inspire me just by the fact we'd sit there and he'd get a fag, pack it out. And he'd, I'd play a few chords, and all of a sudden he'd written fantastic verses and choruses. He really is a great lyricist. And then next minute, it's in the charts. And I was like, wow, this experience of co-writing with people and being I went from being a lover of guitar player, guitar, and then to being in bands, to being being in a band, Simply Red, and then session player, exploring different genres of music, and then being a songwriter, a composer, and that's where I am now, a composer and sometimes singer. So it's just that evolution, always, for me, developing, because I believe that kind of Jimmy Page chemistry of, with a great song as a foundation, you can kind of create great guitar parts or solos that fit the song, that work for the song, as opposed to be about showing what, what a great guitarist you are. Or,
Paul Weller, you said right at the beginning, you've transitioned, and you have, through lots of different genres, and he has as well, hasn't he?
His influences have come out in the Style Council and so forth, or whatever. That love for Motown and soul, they're there, and obviously the early influences of his kind of post that punk era, but new wave or wherever, where he's it was a different movement, it wasn't part of, and it really reflects that,
I do love his work ethic as well.
Album, it's there, recorded, finished, ready to go. And not just that, if you listen to these albums, and a lot, depending whether you like or don't like, but his albums of recent, the past, I don't know, eight albums, or they've all been with the software, with Ableton or something, quite electronic music orientated software for creation of that almost psychedelic Sergeant Pepper kind of collage of music. He combines those with, live band, with working in the studio with a programmer or a kind of creative programmer who create these kind of collages with sampling the band members or the music that they've created. And some of the songs I've done with him have been in that kind of vein, and it amazes me how he does that. He kind of combines old with new, and without people realizing it.
Do you write, when you write with him, do you write in that kind of layered process then, if he's using that sort of technology, or do you...
I generally tend to write something which stands up off an instrument first and foremost, because I try to leave room for expression in his creativity and the band as well, because it's got to translate probably. So I always think about, could this be played live? And then I think, well, if I just keep it to the bare bones, then it can be expanded upon or in the studio. And then he does bring in people, because he's got fantastic musicians and fantastic guitarist, Steve Craddock, playing with him as well as himself. So I kind of try to respect the setup and then create something which they can add to, or it's something which I know will be a bare bones kind of tune. But one of the last ones, an orchestra was brought in anyway. So on an acoustic guitar, I brought an acoustic guitar with me, just hanging out, hoping to get some recording done. And I brought a baritone acoustic with me. So the lower register of the instrument kind of dictated the sound and the chords and the inspiration for him. And he wrote lyrics to it. And it was called By the Waters. And it just kind of develops. And then the orchestra was brought in, and then all of a sudden this beautiful song, and they played it on Later with Jules, and so proud, so happy of it. But that's another experience, working with a Cockney and that.
All that in it, all right?
There's an oath, and they 4:30. So I know I'm rubbish at them things, but that's another experience, that north and south kind of. And then there've been others with Indian classical vocalists and with friends of mine who sing in Bollywood, and then on the blues scene and the rock scene, and different people and different genres just bring out so many things. I love it. I really love it because it challenges you and you learn. It's about the learning,
Well, I was going to say, because you've been a teacher as well, haven't you? Or you still are, because you never stop teaching.
I do share. I share. I think that with all the experiences that you gain, you could do the reclusive rock star thing, and sit in your farm and do paint pictures or whatever, from out the
pigs.
Go and feed the pigs and off paint them. Yeah. Or you could pass on that knowledge. I think passing on that knowledge is it's an Eastern trait, because if you look in the East, you've got sensei, guru, pandit, ustad. Knowledge is shared with people like that who pass on information directly, because there's more to just learning something. You have to be taught a way of life, in a sense, or how to live a life, and the soul and the mind have to be right for receiving that information.
Yeah.
Whereas in the West, it's the written experience, and knowledge is written down, and we learn from books as such. Whereas I think that combination of teacher and book is a good thing, and it's in me. I feel that whatever I've learned from music or in life, I'd love to pass on. Because.
And has that encouraged you in some of the projects you've been involved? I mean, because you've been involved with Stephen Rothery's Guitar Academy.
The Guitar Academy, yeah. Any opportunity to share, what I've learned or the experiences of, and it's such a. Yeah, it's an honor, Steve Rothers coming up, and Rothers asking us, to come and play alongside other great players. And in actual fact, that's how the Stephen Wilson gig came about. He was in the audience, and it was in Tring, and he was sat in the audience.
Stephen Rothery was in the audience.
Stephen Wilson. Yeah.
Oh, Stephen Wilson was in the audience. Right.
Rothers was there. It was his show. It was the Guitar Academy. But,
yeah.
But Stephen Wilson was in the audience, and then he just kind of came to me afterwards and said, I loved what you did and this and that, and I'm doing this tour of Grace for Drowning, and we're going to record a live Grace for Drowning album, which I'd like you to be a part of. And the tour, it's a world tour, and the bass is the album. And I said, no. Well, it wasn't that. It was just that, I'm not a session player, and I just thought there were people better suited to it, and I thought I wouldn't fit, really. And I don't know whether it was what he wanted, and I thought other people were better suited, but he insisted, because what I played at the on that Guitar Academy thing was about time signatures, and where I'd learned about odd time signatures, about thinking outside of, and very much because that album had Steve Hackett and Robert Fripp, two of the main components on the guitar, as well as obviously Steve's guitar playing himself, his own composition. So I liked it. I thought I like the feel of this. So, and plus it was a world tour, and I thought, hey, it's a great opportunity to network, and I'll give it a bash for a little while.
get more involved in the prog world again.
I did. I got sucked in. I got roped in again, and there I was. Hi, man. Fancy a samosa? Kind of back into it again, and. It was great.
Quite an incestuous little world, the prog world, isn't it? Lovely fans.
Yeah. No, I understand what you mean. But the lineup, Marco Miniman on drums, and I've forgotten. Sorry, the names escape. I'm getting old. And Theo Travis on sax and other wood instruments, wind instruments even. And who else was in there? Oh, Nick Beggs of
Nick Beggs always comes up. Nick Beggs always comes up in a conversation. He gets everywhere, that Nick Beggs.
Yeah. He's a great lad. Great player, and plays the Chapman stick too. And, So and Adam Holtzman, he used to play with Miles Davis on keyboards. Fantastic lineup.
He must have had some stories.
I'm sure, yeah. But I mean, I was out my depth. Really. No, I mean, it's a funny thing. You want to talk about music? I think I spent a decade reverse engineering my playing, and by that I mean that I really wanted to understand what it was about the history of British music and its influence on the world. That's the way I look at music. I'm trying to learn about music, what it is that is special about music from different countries, and about the rock history. I mean, even the word rock in itself, it kind of bothers me because of its cultural appropriation, as in blues and so forth, and it's kind of the growth of what rock is. And but I do. I love the power of what British music is, that the statement and the expression within, I mean, not just the Sex Pistols, but, you know, it kind of epitomizes statements and expression, which you can't teach in, say, like India or Pakistan or Bangladesh or Sri Lanka or something, you know, because that system is built on respect systems. I'm not saying there's no respect in the West, but the West has worked out how to break down that respect system, which confines and inhibits artistic expression. Do you understand what I mean?
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. You're saying that there's also our history of music is also about disruption of the status quo, and it's about it's a little bit about, you know, sort of rubbing up against the establishment as well, and actually creating something new.
Yeah, I mean, I had to throw a TV out of a hotel room window sober to try and feel what that
you did it. You actually did that.
Yeah, I did. It happened in the States, and you can't do it now.
Big TV or a little one? Or?
Oh, it was CRT, cathode ray tube.
Oh, you know, well, they needed to go anyway, didn't they? Makes a mess though. That makes a mess.
If it was valves, I'd probably nick the valves. But anyway, no, it was. You can't do it today, can you? Because obviously the windows are all locked, and you know, it's mesh.
You can never get them open enough at all. Not even to breathe.
You just about breathe out of them, yeah. But what I'm saying is that, you know, I've lived such an inhibited life in terms of, you know, what I felt as religious pressures, peer pressures, community pressures, and for me to play music, it's such an achievement and such a privilege. And but I wanted to achieve that, and I didn't want to. I can't get to. I mean, some people can, but I can't get to that Jimi Hendrix phase. You know, the drugs and the drink and the women. Well, maybe the women, but anyway, I just can't get to that phase where I can say that I can take that experience further. So it's a sober experience and inhibited with all these pressures. And joining the Stone Roses, for instance, and there were other bands before that were worked with on Rough Trade, and we supported the Pixies. And I did step outside of myself, you know. It wasn't delirious, but I felt kind of liberated. And I think that's why I play the guitar first and foremost, because it's a symbol of rebellion and rock and roll rebellion, and I need that. My life is quiet otherwise, and the guitar is a symbol of rebellion, and it's my escapism from the world that I live in. Do you understand? I don't know if I can explain myself well here, but
no, I think you are. Yeah, definitely.
That's my relationship with the music and the guitar. That sums everything up. I wish I could be, you know, that guy in Sex Pistols, or that guy in, you know, any of the punk bands or other bands. You know, the expression is so free. And I've worked in prog and rock and blues and so forth, and in jazz and jazz funk and various. I hate that word fusion, such a colonial word. But anyway, but the music is still quite confining, if you know what I mean. It's almost like the perfection of it is confining, you know, that people like things in boxes, and the perfection of the notes falling within things that they know will happen. Whereas people who can barely play instruments can say so much. And I'm trying to...
I'm so glad you say that, because I was in a band 91, 92 period, and we could barely play instruments. Well, no, there were a couple of guys in the band that were really talented, but I mean, I was completely out of my depth. In fact, every time I've been in a band, I've been completely out of my depth. But there was a definite. And I came from a small village, and it was very rural, and very, very kind of insular, etc. And just going to a city and being in a band and getting your swagger on, if you like,
and the world's opened as well.
It's more than the music, is what you're saying as well.
Absolutely.
It's what you feel. You feel empowered through that as well, through that whole experience.
Empowered and free. I mean, also, I've got to admit that I also chose music because it made me friends internationally. It's such a strange thing that I found that music was this universal language which required no passport. Music is that for me. It's something that requires no passports. You can be in Libya, a young kid enjoying the same music as somebody in the States or in the UK or wherever, enjoying the same things. And when it comes down to that, politics just kind of makes no sense to me. That I find this common bond between, not because of our color or because of our religion or our gender, but because we share a bond through music and a love of music, like sports, for instance. But I find music more kind of uniting in a way when you're open-minded about it, and not even being able to speak the same. I had this thing when I've done a lot of kind of social work, playing for young terminally ill children in hospices. And then other things like mentoring in prisons. I've done work like that, lectures to young people, playing primary schools, just entertaining children in assemblies in primary schools. But I found that the music was the thing that I could communicate to a terminally ill child, even though they didn't want to speak to the parents or didn't want to speak to the staff or whatever, but to just sit there with an instrument and to play something without it being about how good you are. It clicked. I thought, I understand. I think I understand. I get it, that this music is this communication, friendship, allowing somebody to say what they can't say in words. I just love that. I'm sorry I always sound a bit kind of naive.
No, not at all. Not at all.
It really does. I think about this all the time. And the people I meet, when I speak to people who love music, I can't understand anybody who doesn't like music. When somebody says, I don't like music, it's like saying to me, I don't like cake.
I don't like air, I think.
Well, I got to tell you a little story. Sorry, if you've got time. I think it's
it's great.
It's coming up to 16:44, and we're sat here with. So I remember being with Ian Brown band. Sorry,
we're having a good time, so it doesn't matter. Everyone else is going to have a good time.
I am anyway.
Exactly.
You look like the victim, but I remember being with Ian Brown on tour, and we had a party, his birthday party, after a gig, and they brought in a big birthday cake, and his mum and dad were there, and his manager was there, and from the record label, and he'd been assigned. And then he kind of cut a piece of the cake for everybody, and they offered it to the manager, and he went, no thanks. And he went, what do you mean? And he went, I don't like cake. And we all looked at each other like, he don't like cake. And that night when we went to our hotel rooms, every time we passed each other in the corridor, we'd go, he don't like cake. And we got on the tour bus in the morning, we go, he don't like cake. And so it became this running joke, and within a week he was sacked. Yeah. So it just says a man who doesn't like cake shouldn't be trusted, or a person who doesn't like cake shouldn't be trusted. And he was out on his ear after a week.
What's not to like about cake?
Sorry?
Because what's there not to like about cake?
Well, exactly, a music. So that's what I'm trying to get at. Anyway, I did digress into cake, but cake and music, it's kind of similar.
Yeah.
But music is that, it's just I can't see life without music. I don't understand. It's a part of life. Life is music. Vibration is life. Vibration is what everything is made of. And
generally, people that really love music just love music, and which is the great thing.
God, I come across so many bands that don't like music. I don't understand.
Yeah. Or you think that they don't because of what you hear.
Yeah, maybe that's the case. In my opinion, yeah. But it's also, I mean, I'm a kind of my approach is that Frank Zappa approach of music, that shows shouldn't be boring. They shouldn't be the same. You got a hit album and you go out and tour and you play the same songs and the same solos. And I think it shouldn't be like, you should take a chance and you should play. I know people want to hear, I mean, obviously, if I was Jimmy Page and went out and I played a completely different solo to the solo on Stairway to Heaven, everybody be up in arms. Or Jeff Beck playing,
Jimmy. Back in your box.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, iconic kind of things, I understand that. Or me playing Eruption by Eddie Van Halen. Or it's kind of, I would.
But it is nice. It is nice, and I think if you're a musician that's really searching for the truth in every bit of music that you put out there as well.
Well, I mean, life can be so boring. It's like, I don't want to clock on, to a 9 to 5, because I don't want to be doing the same things day in, day out for years and years and years. Playing music for me is about life, like meeting people, improvisation, what you say, what you respond to, and playing is like that. If I was on stage, I don't need a sheet of music or a recording to tell me how the music goes. My ears and my heart and my soul are telling me. And that night, the audience will experience what's happening in that space, how that space makes you feel, not how you composed it in the studio and then try and force an audience to accept it as a studio version. That place, that room, that time, that age. I mean, how many times do we relate to music at a certain age? Our college, uni experience, our girlfriend, boyfriend experience.
Well, people say it's the soundtrack to their lives, and it is. I mean, if you really, if you live through music, then you hear something and it just floods back to that particular time, and you think, oh my God, wow, that was that.
Absolutely. If you, I sacrificed a lot to play music. That's the key of it, really. I mean, the core of it, that I sacrificed maybe a career in science or medicine or something, I don't know, or maybe even in art as a painter. I paint and draw as well, or sports, if I pursued, sports further. But I value it. I value music in that way, that I did this sacrifice because I believe that music is so powerful. I see it from concerts. And, I can say this because I know that everybody in a concert audience knows their experience of a show, their best show, the best time of their life, or maybe the worst. It's kind of, it goes with moods. It goes with, sorrow, joy, anything, it's,
I mean, we've all been to, having said that, we've all been to bad shows. I think that's probably what you were saying as well. No. But why do some bands or people hate music? If you go to a concert and you feel that the musicians behind the music aren't into it,
you can feel it, you can see it,
you completely feel that. And just that, and that's where you just
you hit up on something there, Graham, that I think that there seems to me to be like a decline almost in live band. I mean, obviously the pandemic has put an end to live music, but what I'm saying is that there seems that relationship of pride in your work and pride in your delivery to a person who's paying for a ticket. That person might have absolutely nothing, and they worked out how to get to your show and bought a ticket. And I think when you own that, you kind of, it's your duty to deliver the best possible show that you can give and your best possible performance. And I say that without any doubt in my mind that, or in my heart, that you should. It's your obligation to deliver the best show you possibly can to a paying audience or to people who made an effort.
Why do you think I'm a big Marillion fan? I make no bones of it.
Absolutely, yeah. They make maximum effort, and not only that, they, in the Guinness Book of Records, they laid the precedent down for crowdfunding, for Patreon and Kickstarter and so forth. And they came back and did that every night. If you go to any of their conventions, which I've had the honor of playing, you see them thinking all their ideas, in effect, all thinking of nuance, different things to excite the audience, to involve people, that audience engagement. It's just fantastic. You get,
but it's a family, isn't it? It's a family.
And obviously you've built a family of core audience and fans, and they're superb at that, just masters of it. And they each individually handle their role. That's what I love about that band. They handle their individual roles, whether one is the accountant or one is the creative or one is the kind of producer or whatever it is. They come together and pull together instead of like lazy asses in a band relying on the drummer to bring the PA and drive.
And we now know that Steve Rothery is the barman. If you went to the last convention, which was online.
So, you know what my favorite was? Who Wants to Be a Marillionaire? I really loved that title.
Fantastic.
Having them stood behind a curtain and having one of them on stage ringing them.
Even that, in the midst of the pandemic, to put their convention online, to take it online and realize that people were missing this, not just missing the music, but missing the family.
Yeah.
And to bring it back to that and be creative with it.
I was shocked when I met Marillion. I mean, I've been good friends with them for a long. I hope I can say we're good friends, and I known them for a long time since playing. I probably first shows with Hemel Hempstead or something like support tour with them at a show there, and I don't remember, was it 98 or 99, somewhere around there. It was very early on, and kind of not early on, obviously in their history, but. I forgot what I was going to say, but
you were shocked when you met them, you said. Why were you shocked when you met them?
It was obviously a lie because I can't remember. But anyway, I won't digress. I'll pretend I know what I'm talking about. That I met the band, and I think what it was about them, I mean, obviously there's their relationship with each other. They appear to be great friends, but they're so talented. But I remember what it was. What it was about that band was actually something quite quirky. I only knew Ian Mosley, and the reason I knew Ian Mosley was because of Gordon Giltrap Live. And Ian was the drummer in Gordon Giltrap's band, live band, years back, one of the early vinyls that I'd bought. And I was like, oh my God, that's Ian Mosley from... I mean, yeah, of course, I'd seen Marillion on Top of the Pops or something. With a dirty sellout pop tune. Yeah, all right, mate. But no, there was, I just did know of, but that was, for me, was the biggest connection. I was like, oh my God, that's Ian Mosley. And he's such a fabulous drummer.
He's had a history of drumming. I mean, it went back to, I think, he used to drum for Rocky Horror Picture Show. Right. Back. Yeah, exactly. And talking about it, I have a little Ian Mosley story, which was when my eldest, who's now 19 and away at university, was only 6 weeks old. I invited Ian to a festival that I was doing radio at, and he came along as my guest very kindly. And we said, we're going to meet up in the pub at this festival one night with Ben Castle. I don't know. Have you ever met Ben Castle?
Yeah, a saxophonist.
That's right. It's Roy Castle's son. You know, Roy Castle that used to be the record breakers on TV.
He works up in Dewsbury with a friend of mine on an Indian classical project. Amazing player.
Yeah. And the two of them had just done an album together, Post Mankind, which is a jazzy kind of album.
Yeah.
But we sat there in the bar talking about music, and Ian's going AC/DC and you know, Steve Hackett and Gil Trapp, and Ben's going, who? Because he's quite young, and it's like, you've not heard of any of these?
Yeah.
No?
You know, that's what I like about music, that we can talk about. I mean, now we're obviously going back into, you know, prog era and so forth. But for me, my experiences are also currently, you know, in history, in, you know, dubstep and grime and trap and stuff. I'm quite comfortable in electronic music as well. You know, I like technology. I like the way that you can create music. New kinds, different ideas come from technology as well as a tool, you know, used in the right way. And I love being able to, it's great to be on this show, actually, to be able to talk about this, you know, these different kinds of music and diverse kinds of music and that journey. That was quite a time of my life, you know, from when I met Marillion and, you know, met Steve Hogarth predominantly, and then he asked me to join the H band, and that whole journey. Well, it's such a, it'll all be in the book. That's what they say. It'll all be in the book.
Well, let's hope you write it then.
You know, I think it was Ian Brown that said, somebody asked him about his autobiography when it's kind of in. He says, autobiographies are for big heads. I don't know, you know, I'll ever write that, because I'll be thinking in my head, autobiographies are for big heads.
Well, I think the trick is to write a pamphlet first.
Graham, I'd have to leave the country. If I spilt the beans on the rock and roll industry, the truth of it, I'd have to leave the country, and you'd be like, no, he didn't play that, did he? He didn't. Did that? I just remember recently watching Tim Pierce, who's one of the world's biggest session guitarists and played on so much stuff. And then he said, I played the lead guitar on Runaway by Bon Jovi, the first single. It wasn't Richie Sambora, it was him. He sat in the studio and played that solo and showed it to us. And, you know, that's the beauty of YouTube. I was like, you know, there's so many things in the history of music that we do not know. And if you did know, it might actually ruin everything. I think I'm going to stay quiet, because the things I could say.
The illusion, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But the music still stands, and that's it, really.
Yeah.
So what are you up to now? What
it's funny.
Other than being holed up in a building like everybody else in the country.
As you can tell, I'm very podcast minded, or shall we say broadcast minded. I've got my beautiful Shure microphone here, my MV7. I want a nice clear voice for you all. But I've kind of, since March last year, I've been learning about broadcast, and I've been learning about gaming and YouTubing and you know, all digital kind of outputs, or shall we say content creation. Because I thought, if I'm going to stay a musician and be able to share my creations, I need to learn how to distribute digitally. I need to know how to broadcast, how to create content. So that's what I've been doing. I've been working on how to be able to communicate with the world. And I started writing again, and I've uploaded my first tune to various musical platforms through DistroKid and
available.
Well, as soon as I say the word Spotify, then there's an uproar, and then all of a sudden there's a big debate about Spotify. But me personally, I just get on with it. I'm not interested in, I mean, I'm in the union, and I've been on the actual committee for the Musicians Union. So it's about improvement. It's not about, you know, stopping somebody and then saying, listen, let's sort it out right now. It'll never happen. It's about changing the laws and about improving those and getting benefits for artists and as we go along, but get on with it.
About talking about it and education in part of my day job as well. One of the reasons I do this might, you talked about reverse engineered earlier, which is lovely, because basically what I do all day long is reverse engineer.
Yeah, so, but it's really hard, reverse engineering. That's not easy.
It really is. But
you're set in your ways. You're set in your ways. You are.
Yeah, but my sort of take is on things like ergonomics, etc. And I do another podcast on ergonomics, and but it's with things like that, you say the same thing over and over again in a way, but it's about learning how to get that message over to a different generation, a different set of people in a slightly different way, so that it works for each of those different individual communities, because it's not necessarily a case of having a singular message and everybody absorbs it. And you probably learning that with what you're doing with
or learning from those communities, or learning from, like I learned from younger people who are gamers and so forth, and because they look for what's free, or they look for and then you see what's popular because it is free or it's cheap and you can just get on with the job. It's like, in broadcast, there would be a camera crew, there would be the post video, the video editing suite, there'll be all this, and it'll be a timetable. Whereas here and now, we can just go switch on this software and talk, and it goes out because it's streamed and it's live, and it's instant. And we could have maybe loads of these things going out, and YouTube's fantastic for that platform, for learning and sharing stuff, and anything you want to know, or you're late for the party and so you don't know how to tie your dicky bow, and so you just YouTube it and quickly you're away. But same for music. I love the fact that I can learn from people who are up there with technology, and they share it, or there's new things come out for your mobile devices for making music. I really am keen on mobile devices for making music, because you can carry them around with you. It's almost a studio in your pocket. There's so many apps that turn up, they're free, or they're $5.99 and $7.99. And because I come from a poor background, I come from council estate mentality, that it's almost like playing the guitar. I could never afford the pedals that went with the guitar to make the sounds. I couldn't. I mean, I got a little guitar, because I know we've probably got to finish, and we'll probably run if 5 o'clock was the time you wanted to finish. But to play,
I've got to feed the kids in a minute.
Exactly, important things in life. I got to feed the chickens, then the 2 cats, and the 2 dogs, the 3 fish, and we had a snake, but it died, or did it end up in berry? I can't remember. But yeah. Anyway, I digress again. I'm good at that. But this thing kind of explains. Like, let me play a little reggae rhythm, okay?
Yeah. All right. Very good.
I could never afford the echo pedal, so I used to have to do it with my hands.
With your fingers.
You know what I mean? I had to learn to improvise with what I had and what I got, and that's life for me in general. So I like that aspect with technology today. You can download free stuff all the time. If you want to broadcast, you can get OBS Studios. You can get DaVinci Resolve for free and edit your videos. You can, get apps which make music and beats or record your voice. And
I agree. I think, at the end of the day, I think what technology does is just enables people to start and get going. Yeah. And then the education bit is all about then learning how to take it further and then learning value as well.
Yeah.
And it's like the streaming thing for me. I think streaming's brilliant, in as much as I think streaming is brilliant in the fact that you can just access music and you can just access loads of it. The education piece behind it is just learning what value musicians get out of you actually paying them for certain things. Yeah,
sure, absolutely. I mean, the monetization is another aspect which needs exploring for musicians if you want to survive, because there are income streams within it that can support you if you can find them or learn how to do that. And Patreon's one of those things. Like Marillion showed people about crowdfunding and about having a happy core fan base and supporting them, and they support you. Those are really important factors, and this digital age is showing us that. I mean, of course, you can do physical products like Marillion do, because they know the age group of their fan base. They understand you're delivering products that they want. So they still want DVDs. They still want things with things to read, explanations, insights. But YouTube can give you insights, and so many, the whole aspect of digital is that you can share the journey. That's what I love about it. You can share the journey, not necessarily just here's the recording and off you go and here's the tour. Those kind of things don't work, I think, in today's kind of infrastructure for digital.
Well, I interviewed a young lady called Leo yesterday morning, and she's just starting out on her career. But what I found really lovely about it was that she'd already tapped into the idea that arts can come together as well, and that there's a real intrinsic value in bringing those arts together. So she's already formed a relationship with an artist who's done the first cover for her first EP, but they're going to work together so that actually the music and the art will travel together, and that they will develop together, and they will give that back to people together. Right. And therefore it becomes much more tangible. And I'm really pleased that some young minds are learning these tricks along the way and understanding.
Absolutely. The other thing is, I mean, you asked me before about what I'm doing right now, along with actually going back to being a composer and creating and getting that music out there and distributed. I'm also working in the arts sector. I've done 3 years of Arts Council work and exploring things and, researching. And I'm now besieging museums, libraries and art galleries to make them accessible to music, so that music is a part of their content and a reason for people who, especially young people who are into music, to be able to come in and use these spaces with music being an integral part of it, not just as I called it, bones and shit. But that's the Manc description. But you know what I'm saying? I mean, I was one that it's not the same story for everybody. Some people like going to the museum, for instance, and take their children. Some people hate it. I hated it as a child. I was like, there's nothing in here for me. It's got stuff that oppresses me. It makes me feel inferior. It's got pictures of slavery all the time. It's got pictures of, paintings of the Saab on his horse with his, Indian slaves around him, running, around him and doing things. And I always felt like that as a child, when I was forced to go with the school. Yeah. So recently I was fortunate to meet CEOs and people in the art sector or people in councils who are influential in that side. And I explained what my problem was with them. And I said, I'd love to change that. So I'm embarking on a new job as but musician in residence across Lancashire, and Lancashire County Council's Heritage and Learning are going to employ me over the usual. Well, I mean, an artist in residence could be a year, it could be months, it could be a couple of years, or you could be in a new location. But I will be going to these locations and responding to these places as a musician, and seeing what I can either curate or create.
You curate it.
Yeah, and I'm looking to involve young people really to see if they came in, what would they do, musically, and then some scientific work where I'm working with GSM, which is the Global Sound Movement of UCLan, University of Lancashire. Yep. And just kind of looking at how we can capture the acoustics of these spaces and preserve them forever, and then use them in composition work. I'm looking at how I could probably work with young children and they could learn about sampling and go and running around these places, run amok, or own it. takeovers. I love that idea. So that's something I'm working on right now, which I'm really excited about and keen on. But composing, definitely, I've released one tune, The Key of Three, which is on Spotify, Apple Music, and Deezer, and blah 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 blah, all those places. Got a new tune ready for release. Collaborations, that's the next thing. I'm looking at the people who are friends and artists that I want to work with in the future. Look at some collaborations. I'm working with the military as well, hopefully. Almost, I want to demilitarize music. That is part of the military's, ownership, appropriation of music. I want to demilitarize it in a way.
Wow.
That's another project we'll see. So it's strange that this lockdown has brought out in me so many ideas outside of the stage in a way. I thought about what I can do and still be prolific without, me sitting here grumpy, Mr. Grumpy, and kind of.
Because one day we'll all go back to the stage, and one day we'll have that again.
I hope so. God willing, that would happen. But if I'm just laying down plans for you.
There's still an exciting world. There's still an exciting world. I think that's the thing, isn't it? There's still things to do.
Yeah. This knowledge thing you were talking about before, you can get knowledge so quickly and learn something very quickly. Just like a piece of software, you can just look it up on YouTube or discuss it on Discord or something or whatever it is. And I like that, because in the old days, for me growing up because I'm a 60s child, so at school I had to leave the house, put my coat on, leave the house, walk to the bus stop distance away, get on the bus, get to Central Library in Town Centre, get on the ladder, get up to the top hanger to pull down one book to look up one bit of information, and then go and do that same cycle to get home. And then I go, oh, I need to know something else. And then I'd be off. Information, it was so hard to get. And now it's instant. It's Google, Wiki, whatever.
So we have to value it. Listen, we could talk all evening, but it's been fantastic. And, I want you to stay in touch, because if we can work on anything, that would be great.
As you've seen, I'm an open book, mate. But also, I'd like to apologize to your listeners and yourself that I do waffle on. I can't help it. I'm passionate about what I believe in and what I do, and I apologize if it's been long.
That's this kind of space. Aziz, it's been an absolute pleasure. We'll stay in touch, and thank you very much. And people can listen to this on Spotify afterwards as well. So, they might, when they're driving across the country, which they shouldn't be listening to this. Rebels that they are.
Cheers, Graham. It's been a pleasure.
And to you. Bye-bye. Thanks for that.
Cheerio.